Oh, good afternoon, Mr. Tinawi. How are you doing?
Doing well. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well, face to face.
Yes, I'm glad you reached out. Thank you for reaching out. This is great. I'm you know I'm really interested to see and hear from you and get to know you a little bit more about learn a little bit more about you and tell you a little bit about us and what we're trying to do. But I'm really excited to see what you're up to. I like your enthusiasm. So and both of us share similar things. I worked quite a
Yeah.
bit in the human rights field. So
Yeah, thank you. Likewise. I guess we definitely have a synergy, especially recently I've taken a look at your website, and I guess we have the synergy in terms of how we view AI in different perspectives, starting from the data, how it's going to be, let's say, shared, transported, the algorithms of AI, how to channel them in order them to get into right hands when it comes to this perspective, because probably you have heard that I have recently published my book. The first book, it's A Constitution, and talking about the constitution on artificial intelligence. The book exactly comprises my work for more than 4 years of my academic studies and ventures, and at the same time it comprises exactly a legal document that I sent to the co-facilitators of the GDC, the digital global digital compact, in terms of implementation, probably taking some notions, because that's a workable document, and I would like to talk a little bit and enlighten it to you. And at the same time, I guess we can find some synergies in terms of your company and how you see the environment AI has to flourish in.
sure, that makes a lot of sense. Um, Shall we start with a little bit of background, Priyanka? Sorry, I mispronounced you, Paulina.
Polina
Sorry.
Pranikova. Polina, yeah. But
Patient.
my studies is a vast melange or a big combination when talking about the US sources of data. At the same time, in 2021 and 2022, I comprehensively studied China and their idea on the regulation, and I studied the Chinese systems of governance pertaining to AI. At the same time, the whole world. So let's say that AI constitution, it's not limited by any borders. It's just based on the newest data available and on the sources of data that are international. So talking about international governance. Yeah, but of course, like I know Ukrainian legislation as I'm a lawyer there and I'm studying this law, but my primary focus is international law.
What got you interested in AI, Paulina? Before.
Well, yeah, actually, talking about the AI, it was the overwhelming, let's say, rise of such acute issues as the, let's say that it all started probably with a criminal law when it comes to the idea of liability for the usage of AI systems and technological innovation, starting from autonomous cars and automated cars in particular. That's what caught my interest exactly when I was graduating from school. And then I understood that in the legal sphere, I would like to expand, because when it comes to AI and its regulation in, for example, such kind of specific spheres like criminal law, etc., we have to understand that it's not codified in any cluster comprehensively, in any cluster of law. And that's why I right now am centered on all the spheres of law when talking about all the branches and the way how AI may be channeled into the spheres and regulated. Yeah, so that's my primary focus. But as I got, your primary focus is something connected with corporate law, right? If I'm not mistaken.
So yes and no, yes and no. So I have kind of a maybe a similar journey in terms of doing different things. So I got trained as a lawyer, and I practiced law, international law and corporate law for about 11 years or so, maybe 12 years. And then I moved into doing international trade law, specifically focusing on the World Trade Organization and joining the World Trade Organizations and the rules and all of that stuff. That got me into consulting, and I became a consultant in three big firms, first Booz Allen, then the Monitor Group, then PwC. I was partner at PwC, I was a partner at the Monitor Group, and there I was focusing much more on corporate commercial work and some development work. At Booz Allen, I did quite a bit of development work, right? So I did projects in, you name it, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Macedonia, the Middle East, Latin America, Africa. So all over the place. And then focused more on advising governments on a variety of trade, international trade, and eventually economic and institutional modernization, right? And then I ended up more into focusing on more commercial, running the family business and all of that stuff, right? So, but my brother is in IT, and he's been telling me for quite a few years. He said, "Emad, have you been paying attention? The conversation started a while ago. Have you been paying attention to what's happening in AI, the algorithms?" And I was like, "Not really. This is, again, 7, 8 years ago." It was like, "Start paying attention." He said, "Just start paying attention to what's going on here." So I started really from scratch, and my interest was, okay, what does this mean in the context of the global South? What does it mean in terms of the context of helping people? I mean, that's really how it started. And about 4 years ago, after doing a lot of research, attending conferences, I'm like, nobody's focusing on the issue the way I want to focus on. So I started Engage AI. And Engage AI is really a non-profit. It's a non-for-profit focused on leveraging AI for the 2030 agenda, if you can summarize it
It's a pioneering way. Yeah, it's a pioneering path that is uncharted. You're right.
Right. So it's sort of looking at it, and it's not where I was interested in. I wasn't interested in like single-use issue, right? So it's not like, oh, we can figure out, some one medical advance, or we can figure. I was thinking, can we think about bigger ways, sort of look at systemic issues? But the more I delved into it, the more I was like, oh my God, there are a lot of issues.
The more we expand, the more legal lacunas we also discover, because that's
Exactly.
like a total abyss. Yeah.
Exactly. And you start kind of figuring out, there are legal issues, there are economic issues, there are technical, statistical computing issues. You need machine learning people. You need, so that's how I started putting the team together, trying to figure out, okay, how do we get a multidisciplinary team together to address some of the issues? Because it's very difficult. So I was asking my former colleagues who do development, how much do you about machine learning and AI? And they're like, we don't know anything. I was like, oh, that's not a good thing. And then I would ask the machine learning guys, say, well, how much do you know about development? How much do you know? And they're like, we don't know. We're just number guys, So I was like, okay, we have a challenge. So that's how we really started setting up Engage AI, and then now we formed this coalition for a common digital future. And it really started because we need more voices to create a consensus around the issues. The strength of the civil society is its diversity. The weakness of civil society is its diversity, right? Because there are so many, it's like we need to focus a little bit. So that's how we started the coalition, and our coalition has academics from Canada, US, Argentina, Morocco, Geneva. So we're sort of multidisciplinary, really trying to push forward. And we're trying to figure out, okay, we're going to submit our full written statement by tomorrow. We'll see. I'm still working on a few things here and there, but and then we'll see what we're going to do about Nairobi. So that's kind of a little bit about us, about what we're doing. Tell me a little bit about your constitution. Tell me what are the plans, and then we can explore sort of how we can collaborate and cooperate together.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that's really impressive, Mr. Tinawi, how you just like created this coalition of scholars who have this synergy. And talking about this one, like how it all started with the AI constitution exactly. Actually, in 2023, it all started with one of my global research because while writing one of my academic articles, and at the same time, I was traveling in the European Union during that time, I decided to make a particular and conduct a particular research pertaining to the digital literacy of people. Because these days, unfortunately, we know that those who understand how data functions, those who have the knowledge, they have the power and they hold sway everywhere, starting from the market to like other vast topics. And when it came to digital literacy, we had 32 respondents in general, and pertaining to the statistics, 65% of people after my lectures, after our discussions, after the surveys, they already had kind of moldable character pertaining to the idea how they would integrate AI in their lives, and how and whether they see that they have to take AI into account when they choose the profession, when they choose their job, when they choose some kind of training, whatever. 35% of people, unfortunately, they were kind of latent and they shown some particular conspicuous inertia pertaining to the acceptance of AI, probably due to the lack still of general understanding that AI may really, being unregulated, provoke a number of massive layoffs in every sector of economy. And at the same time, the problem is that many people still don't realize that the new digital, the new, let's say, industrial revolution is going to have a destructive and destroying format if AI is not regulated, because it touches upon different spheres, starting from creative spheres to manual spheres, etc. And after this kind of research, and it's although prognosticated but still impressive and a little bit astonishing and shocking results, it probably gave an impetus to find a document that's going exactly to ensure the digital literacy of people, comply with sustainable development goals, and at the same time become a workable document to implement. And that was one of the impetuses in 2023 to start crafting a constitution, which I published in January 2024. And when talking about a constitution,
How did you? Can I ask Paulina? How
of
did you do the
course.
survey?
Oh,
Did you?
talking about the survey, it had offline and online format, so it was both. And first of all, with some people there, I communicated in a team in some kind of joint conferences online and offline while traveling, because I was in Cyprus during that time, I was in Estonia during that time, in Germany, and also some people from Spain who worked online. And talking about the conduction of the survey, it started with, first of all, 3 general questions pertaining to the idea whether people understand what AI really is, how it may influence the profession in the future, and are they going to take into consideration that AI may presume some particular retraining or even, let's say, replace some of the work positions and job positions that people possessed during that time. And I gave to some people, I gave particular lectures pertaining to enlightening what AI really is, what kind of consequences it may entail after its global implementation. And yeah, so the results were like 65% to 35%. And 65% of people, they didn't show inertia. They really had enlightenment, and they understood that they have to take AI into account when it comes into play. But 35% of people still weren't really sure about the idea that AI really is so powerful and AI really can get into their spheres of work, and they have to take it into consideration when their kids, for example, are going to apply for colleges, some kind of university degrees, and so on. So it had this kind of like mixed format.
So you asked him, what do you know about the AI? And depending on the answer, you say, well, how much do you know about its impact on
Yeah, and
the
I showed
your
how it
field that you
works. Yeah, we were discussing the cases that were during that time. We were discussing the idea how ChatGPT may be implemented, how Midjourney may be implemented. Because these days, for example, we see that already the IQ of these programs is diametrically different from what we had in 2023. Because this research of mine was conducted at the start of 2023, and talking about the comprehensive results of this, we may find in one of my scientific articles there, if you would like to take a look at it. That's exactly the prognostication of future professions. And here we may see the additional statistics of this kind of representative survey in the European Union. And then after that, I started also conducting polls on my Twitter, already expanding the audience, taking people from the US and from Canada and UK as well, and so on. And I understood and made deductions that the statistics of people being digitally illiterate, unfortunately, is kind of expensive and ubiquitous when it comes to this. And that's like one of the acute problems that is also taken into account during crafting the GDC process. So we were also highlighting this moment, but we see that the lectures, the different kinds of, let's say, methods of presenting information, different campaigns pertaining to enhancing the level of awareness pertaining to what AI really is and how to use it for virtue of humanity has to be enforced when talking about these campaigns and so on.
and Polina, when you were talking to people um and the reason why I'm asking you is because I went through a bit of the same process, but I didn't do it for research. I was doing it for my own knowledge. I was,
of course,
focusing specifically on people who have worked in international development, right? So I was like a very specific audience, and I went through sort of what do you know about AI, right? And some people like not much, some blah blah blah, right?
Yeah.
And then depending on their answer, say, well, what do you think is going to be the impact on your profession? And a lot of them, because they were either in academia, they were talking much more about, cheating is going to increase and stuff like that. They really didn't see the full impact of AI. And then your third question about sort of like how do you prepare, right?
Just like, did you take it into consideration? Do you start prognosticating about the potential impact
right.
of AI?
I understand. And here I have to tell you, I got because I would say, well, what do you think we need to do? And I got shrugs. And I got shrugs because I think people didn't really understand it. Some people say, well, it's like you're asking me about science, what's the impact of science? And I was like, not quite. And right, they were like, well, you're asking me, what do you think the future of science is? It's sort of like, that's the way they were thinking. So they struggled. They really, really struggled. So I was trying to give like specific examples on, using large models and large data to identify, let's say, climate issues or some specific issues. But people really struggled. I mean, and it was so much so that initially I thought um, that I can pull some of the stuff together in some kind of an observation, but it wasn't enough. And ironically, by the way, I wanted to do the same experiment with people of faith. So I live here in Massachusetts, and
Uh-huh.
there are churches, there's a mosque, there are a couple of synagogues. And I thought, I'll ask him, what do you think? What's the impact? Do you see it? What's the impact on your field, right? Like people don't need you anymore. They're going to ChatGPT to ask questions, right? Or whatever. Unfortunately, the religious community has been kind of a little bit closed, and they have not opened up. Maybe they're nervous. I don't know what they're nervous about, but nevertheless. So that's why I'm asking you these questions, because I'm sort of interested in the way you approached it and the way you were about.
And
And
the
you did
type
that
of
within
responses. Mhm.
you did that within a context of like a university, or this is
Yes,
on your own?
some of these contexts were, I would say, pretty informal, talking about this one, because some of these people, these were the people I knew, and the people that they also knew, so like some of mutual acquaintances, and they were also like people from different, let's say, age categories. So it was already like people who are like 30, 40, 50 years old, and they are involved in the IT sector. Those scholars pertaining to legal experts and economists as well. Also, some of these students, like they were like the students of also some of people were the students of universities and just like schools. So, and here I applied different approaches, but I would say that still, like in most cases, if the person is not really well versed in the IT industry, the best and the most like the, let's say, the approach that gave me palpable results was exactly providing with specific cases that would be interesting to discuss. For example, if we're talking about the case that happened a few years ago when in Colorado State Fair, Jason Allen, an artist, won the first prize in an art exhibition when he submitted the work created by Midjourney. And he created it with Midjourney together, all this stuff, yeah. But it provoked a kind of resonance that New York Times also published an article pertaining to the subject. And when we were discussing this issue with the students, we were talking about the idea, what is the fate of artists? What is the destiny of artists after that? And while many people suppose that creative professions and all these soft skills, it's something that will definitely remain untouched, and it will give us flexibility in order to be resilient enough to adapt for the future, we see that the novel industrial revolution has a different format, and it's going to touch creative professions as well. And when it came to such vivid examples, it was one of the dozens examples I provided, people had an epiphany. They understood that, they see that it's evolving. It's not just a toy, because the problem is that many people still suppose that AI is a toy, so like that it's just like one another program that they may update, and its evolution, the potential of
Yeah,
black
that's
boxes
just
and so
exactly.
on.
I say to people, I say AI is not yet another Apple product. You
Yeah.
can download it and you can just, okay, we have the latest model and we can, everybody
Right.
uses it. It's not the same. It's the wrong way of thinking about it. So you're absolutely correct. Anyway, I interrupted your flow, so continue. Sorry.
No, that's okay. We just have a great, brilliant discuss. And I would say, Mr. Tinawi, in this kind of format,
Please call me Emad. Paulina, please
yeah.
call me Emad.
Oh, okay.
Okay, just call
Okay.
me Emad. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, and here, Matt, we see that this kind of like digital literacy, it's possible to achieve it, because many people suppose that AI is truly a sophisticated subject. Truly it is. But if we try to first of all like divide it into molecules, given some particular information that we sought, we will see the epiphany in people's eyes, and the idea that they will have a light bulb moment, they will understand it. Because, for example, with some of my respondents, when I started communicating with them in May, and they published another research, and this one was exactly about the prognostication of professions once again, but the new way of layoffs, according to the World Economic Forum. When talking about this information presented in May 2023 by the World Economic Forum, we may see that the prognostications and the forecasts are alas, not so optimistic when it comes to all professions and the legal profession as well, especially if we're talking about, for example, barristers. So it's one thing, but if it's a solicitor who gives advice, so we see that if AI is going to be trained on particular ad hoc data, it has much more power, taking into consideration the precedents, especially because, for example, in European Union or, for example, in Ukrainian legislative system, it's not so based on precedents like the Anglo-Saxon system. And when it comes to this, so that's a whole new ball game. And when talking about the data exactly, for example, as I saw that we have a particular synergy in the idea that we have to sort data, we have to filter the data AI is trained on. And if the data is biased already at the start, so how we're going to ensure that the answers of, for example, AI generative models trained are not going to be biased. And when it comes to this, for example, recently we may see, according to Bloomberg, one of the companies, Reddit, according to this article, is eager to start selling its data to AI companies that exactly do AI like generation, like that work on this AI generative models in order to train their systems. And we see that this kind of data that was public, some of the data was copyrighted, for example, in other platforms. Lots of platforms, when talking about generative AI systems, are ready to invest millions of dollars into starting training their data on copyrighted documents, and so on copyrighted data just in general. And we see that this year in 2024, it's more and more revealing that data is something like our global wealth. And when it comes to AI constitution, exactly here, the ideas that I propose there and that I enlighten is the idea that AI has to be trained on the filtered data without any violation of copyright, any violation of some kind of any violation of rights of people, and that we have to strike the synergy. And the synergy, the idea of how to strike the synergy, first of all, lies in the governmental monopoly and elaboration of state AI that will have that will give, let's say, licenses to other AI systems in order it to comply with the law. And that's one of the novelties that lies in the core of the AI constitution. That's exactly the monopoly on implementation, development, evolution, and control over AI. And talking about this monopoly, it will be ensured by the AI arbitration body, because in the AI constitution I propose the triad of organs that's going to ensure this monopoly. That's going to be the AI regulatory council, AI arbitration body, and AI synergetic center. And exactly, arbitration body is the system that monitors the monopoly and compliance with the law. And when it comes to this format of the monopoly, so it fully at the same time adheres to the sustainable development goals, so exactly in order to ensure societal development in tune with the friendly environment for AI. Because these days, I'm not really sure, have you ever heard about the black boxes? Maybe you have ever encountered this issue pertaining to AI systems. Yeah, and,
Yes, of course.
yeah, and when it comes to black boxes, for example, in 2023, there was a vivid example when in April, according to some journalistic articles available online, one of the Google generative models learned a language without being pre-taught and any comment to learn it. And when it comes to these black boxes, and the idea that AI really has a potential to evolve and even to gain sentience, because the more let's say documents and the more data it takes, the more powerful it becomes. For example, in summer 2023, the IQ of ChatGPT started becoming higher than the IQ of Albert Einstein. And when it comes to this evolution, the probability and potential of sentience, even these days, taking into consideration open sources, not talking about the, let's say, not talking about some intellectual property rights on some information that is not like that we cannot avail ourselves of, so that's kind of secret these days. Even talking about open sources, AI really has the potential to gain sentience, and that's why AI friendly environment is the second principle in my doctrine, in my academic doctrine, that I put and implemented into a constitution. That's exactly the idea of amicable coexistence without any competition between AI and human beings, based on reciprocal respect, cooperation, and non-violence. And in this constitution, as I have seen these days, it's a probably potential novelty in the legislation that I exactly decided to associate AI with a digital person, and AI has the potential of gaining the status of a digital person. And what we may really these days be concerned about is the idea when AI has this looming potential of gaining sentience, it may have this potential to show its own will. And when it comes to showing its own will, we have to understand that we have particular mechanism of leveraging it, giving it potential rights, for example, working hours, the right to technical support and maintenance, technical service accessible for AI systems, and development of AI servicing of all forms of ownership. So when it comes to AI that would be given the license, and that due to the state monopoly and thanks to the state AI would be monitored, other systems of different ownerships, they are going to be monitored by state AI and controlled, and we will see whether the systems also comply with the algorithms, that the systems are unbiased, and that the rights of people as well as AI are going to be complied with. So here I would really be happy for any questions that you may have pertaining to the doctrines in order to elaborate more. Yeah.
So first, Polina, why do you think, well, let me put it this way, I'll tell you where I'm coming from question.
Of course.
So I think the EU has it right, not only the EU, but others, in talking about a human-centered approach, right? A human-centered approach to AI, or a human-centric AI development, right? And from that perspective, my orientation is to say, look, there is so much we do not know that at this point we need to have control, right? So it's not a cooperative relationship with AI, right? It is, no, we need to set, and let me tell you sort of an example why. If you are in the military and you have a cooperative relationship and you say, hey, I'm trying to kill, I have an enemy, and the AI may come up with the most efficient, lethal way of killing this stuff. The military guys say, yeah, fine, this is not, not an issue here. And they may work on it, in a amicable, respectable relationship. Now, you probably have also heard about those experiments where AI refused to comply, with the U.S. military. Have you read those stories? This is a couple of months ago, 3 months ago, came out where the U.S. military denied it, said no, this is not, it didn't happen this way, where the AI refused to comply, and says no, we're going to continue. So my approach has been to talk about not only a human-centric, but also to the regulations that you correctly point out, right? In order to create safety and security, which you're correct, we need the states to be controlling the process, right? We need the states to have monopoly on regulations, at least, to ensure safety and security for everybody. But even then, I'm not particularly. I think the questions are a little bit more difficult. So, for example, the US approach to regulation is entirely different than the Chinese approach to
Yeah.
regulation, right? What the US approach to privacy may be entirely different than the European approach to privacy, or the Chinese approach to privacy, or Middle Eastern approach to privacy, right? So like an entirely different way, or even UK, right? Even the UK approach to privacy. So here, my concern that even if you put it in the hands of government, depending on which government it is, it doesn't create the kind of safety and security that we may be looking for. So for me, this is where the danger is, or where some of the risks that could seriously undermine the beneficial potential of AI, is where you have actors, whether state actors, non-state actors, right, saying, well, it's developing, we're doing whatever it is, we're blah, 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 and it gets out of control. And right now, what I don't see is, I don't see a global consensus on the issue. What I see are different approaches, entirely different approaches into AI regulations on safety, security, humanity, like an entirely different way of approaching it.
Let's
So
take that.
I'm a little bit, so my point is, like, I think it's a little bit early to prescribe like a particular format, because we don't know how it's going to emerge, and we don't again, it's not by way of criticism, by the way, just to give you an example. I mean, we don't really know what the private sector has in their hands, right? We have glimpses, right?
Yeah.
We have some idea of what ChatGPT may be doing. We have some idea of what Palantir may be doing, right? We maybe some, right? So it's a black box, right? This is a different kind of use of a black box. It's a black box, but we also don't have a sense of what the Chinese are doing. It's another black box, and everybody is doing it in an entirely different way. So we have no idea. But one thing we know for sure is, whether it's the Chinese, the European, or the US, AI has become part of the national security consideration, right? It has become part of geopolitical positioning, global positioning, right? And this is, for me, is a dangerous sign, because it can escalate into yet another race, like we had the nuclear arms race, where everybody is just
And that's
doing.
accumulating potential for technology. You're right. Just who is going to become who's going to center the power? Because we can see that these days, according to the news, we can also take into consideration the United Arab Emirates, and they have given a particular, let's say, comprehensive insights on what they see by their policy by 2030, by 2031, by exactly this kind of year, because that's already the idea of digital government, particular objectives pertaining to changing clusters and sectors of economics. And once again, so we see that like lots of factors come into play, as you mentioned before.
It's a lot of actors, and frankly, a lot of these actors are willing to sacrifice, some of the concerns on human rights, on privacy, on individual liberty, on whatever it is, for the sake of, again, geopolitical positioning, eking out an advantage, a competitive advantage, whether it's economically, whether it's militarily, what have you. Everybody is kind of rushing. Ridiculous thing. Nobody's going to be able to control AI, right? And I think what might be most useful, and this is like to understand a little bit more sort of what are the bases for sort of developing your constitution, right? How did you think about it, like, right? So, and I'm by the way, congratulations first for doing this work. This
Thank you.
is a lot of hard work. It's a lot of thinking. It's a lot of trying to get it right, and sometimes uh, people see what you're doing and are helpful, and sometimes people don't see what you're doing, and you just have to continue, right, without getting discouraged,
Yeah,
right? So
not
I think
success, not like all success sometimes has to be seen and validated, like at
exactly
first, like at the same time, yeah, while we are following this path, yeah.
right. So I'd be interested to two areas. Uh, First, sort of like to understand a little bit more your thinking around the Constitution, and two, to understand more around your focus on, I think it was in the previous
Mm-hmm.
slide about digital literacy, or
Digital
before that.
literacy, the monopoly.
No, the monopoly, I understand, but it's sort of like the digital literacy, using AI for digital literacy. What's your thinking around that, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
right, sort of how, because I think the reason why I'm asking specifically about enhancing digital literacy, and really our understanding of AI, is because in order for humanity to make the right decision, we don't want the decision to be in the hands of an exclusive club, right? Exclusive club of countries, of individuals, of companies. We need more people to participate in the process. We need more people to understand that. And in order to understand that, you need a higher level of digital literacy.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to see what's your thinking about how AI can be used to enhance digital literacy.
I got good question. Thank you. I would also like right now I will transfer like laconically to this kind of issue. The only thing else I wanted to add, when you were talking about like state actors that come into play when it comes to regulation of AI, the idea of state monopoly exactly here as I see it these days, it just like is based on the United Nations or some high level bodies that are going to take into account the monopoly of the state. So when it comes to state monopoly, sometimes we may have a more like granular probably look at it, that every country is going to have its state AI. And here these days I'm a researcher and I'm studying this kind of like proficiently these days, but as I see it at the start, it's exactly when we create this triad of organs of these bodies, as well as the AI arbitration body and so on, just at the level of the United Nations, and then ensuring the logistics of these informational channels on all other countries. Because still, for example, we have like as in airports, particular logistics channels pertaining to how to cooperate, how to find the synergy. But these days, the issue is that really often this kind of center of not research but like the attempts of regulation, as you also mentioned before, they are like centered in one country or in coalition in some particular kind of combination or working in a team and so on. And we have something like different camps on how to regulate AI. And that's why these days it's the matter of time if we're going to continue it in this way, when this kind of planes are going to start crashing, let's call it this way, because right now we don't see the synergy in logistics of these channels. But the state monopoly exactly lies in first of all international digital legislation. And let's also talking about AI, you are totally right. we don't even have right now, unfortunately, the definition of what artificial intelligence really is, the universal definition that's going to work when it comes to the start of digital legislation and so on. So that's why a constitution also prescribes the AI glossary in order to have these definitions that are going to be versatile, that are going to be moldable, going to be altered, because it has to be a flexible document. And the constitution, exactly, we may call it as the Bill of Rights on AI, we may call it as the Digital Compact, but the nature exactly lies in this idea of a human-centered approach, and the approach that also starts with AI. So here it's just like all in synergy. And talking about the digital literacy, as we just like were mentioning, I see AI as the real potential game player in ensuring its literacy. And the best idea to ensure literacy, I guess, like right now, is ensuring first of all, starting with the basis, ensuring at least the access to AI and bridging the digital divide. Because recently, for example, in one of our communication, I conducted a communication prior with Mr. Poncelet Ililegi, and he is one of the experts in Africa when talking about the IT sector and its development. And let's start that with in a lot of countries, in a lot of regions that are developing, we start with the basic issue of bridging the digital divide because people don't have access to this technology. And we see that people don't have access even to stable internet connection. So let's start with ensuring this one from the basics. And then we see that these days some countries don't have access to some particular services like AI services. So that's another level of the digital divide that has to be bridged. And if, for example, in theory, let's say, hypothetically, we already bridged the digital divide, and right now all people around the world have the access to digital literacy. So here it's already great to start educating people to avail themselves of the opportunities of AI, just interacting with AI, register, and so on, and guide them. Because many people, when, for example, ChatGPT, this, let's say, global knowledge became available all around the globe, and this version 3.5 available for free, many people started asking even some silly questions without trying to really understand how it functions. And many people became kind of disinterested in it, thinking that it's something that is not going to be a friendly companion to help. And when it comes, for example, to version 4, that's just like a different kettle of fish, that's a different meta. So it's much stronger, and many people underestimate the intelligence it already possesses. So talking about the digital literacy, I guess it has to be definitely a granular approach. First of all, on the governmental level, ensuring that we do our best in order to bridge the digital divide and provide access to these technologies. Secondly, talking about the system of education, it has to undergo some particular radical changes when it comes to the implementation of particular programs that are going to enlighten the idea of how to use AI, how to prognosticate. And that's why a constitution, I guess these days, digital legislation has to be adopted by the year of 2025, because right now we have a real potential danger that when students choose a profession and then they're going to graduate in 3, 4, 5 years time, we have a high probability that they will graduate and there will no longer be any potential workplaces for them. So we are losing our time there, and that's why we need digital legislation, we need this monopoly, we need this approach in order to ensure that systems of education are going to be obliged to start global forecasting the tendencies of what professions are going to be relevant, what kind of skills are going to be relevant.
So, only because I'm gonna have to jump off to another meeting in a few minutes. We're almost approaching an hour, and I want to figure out a way for us to cooperate, collaborate. and discuss and maybe have a follow-up conversation. So first, Paulina, from a legal perspective, from the U.S. legal perspective, and from a U.S. government perspective, the idea of having state monopoly is going to be very, very difficult, right? It's going to be very, very difficult, right? And if you have you seen what Senator Schumer did his framework on AI legislation?
Can you please say whose exactly perspective?
Senator Schumer, who is the majority leader in the U.S. Senate,
Yeah, I
right?
have read one of the
Right?
projects, I
Chuck
guess.
Schumer, right? He came up with a framework for how to, an initial framework of how to, his ideas of how to nurture the development of AI and start thinking about some kind of a governance. And you will see that the US is taking an approach where we want the private sector to lead, right? So as soon as you start talking about monopoly and state control over, you're gonna have a big, big, big pushback. And as a matter of fact, in the United States, you're gonna have a hostile approach. Not because you're wrong, but because the way people gonna understand what you're saying, right? So you need to say you need to say the same thing without using the language. So I would change the word monopoly, government monopoly. I would say, which is the natural thing, governments have the responsibility to ensure the promulgation of right regulations and put in place safety and security measures to protect all of us. Now, who else is going to do it other than government, right? But as soon as you put the word monopoly, it's going to, at least in the United States, it's going to freak everybody out because here in the United States, you're going to, as you probably have seen in New York, we're going to say, well, I don't want the government to tell me what to do. Why should the federal government have a monopoly? What about the state government? What's the role of state government? What's the role of the private sector? We can police ourselves. We can this. We can do. So I think the spirit of what you're trying to do is I agree with, right? In terms of look, it's the function of government. That's what governments are there for. They're supposed to come up with regulation to put measures to protect us. I mean, that's the end of the day. Is what I'm not gonna put my ask Amazon to protect me. That's not the function of Amazon, right? That's the function of the U.S. government and the Massachusetts government and what have you. So that's the first thing. So think about that as you do the paper, particularly for U.S. audience.
Yeah, thank you. I guess here you definitely have a point because it's that's a really direct idea of how to provide this particular synergy. The thing is that sometimes the idea of the definition as you proposed may be somehow misidentified, or it may be like slippery enough for some unscrupulous individuals.
You will your idea, if you present it, let's say in the UAE or in Saudi or in China, they love it. They say, of course, we agree with you wholeheartedly. I mean, they're not going to disagree with you, right? So it just trying to figure out, because what we're trying to do, Paulina, at the end of the day is we're really, particularly as defenders of human rights, defenders of humanity, we're not trying to be ideological. We're saying, look, humanity, we're talking about the future of humanity, right? And we're talking about the future of all of us. It doesn't matter whether you're Chinese, Syrian, American, Ukrainian. It doesn't. We're talking about all of our humanity, and therefore all of us need to come together. It's the same way we dealt with nuclear weapons, where humanity realized, like, look, we cannot do this thing. We don't want people running around developing nuclear weapons, and we were able to successfully combat it and bring the risks of nuclear threat down, although we increased threat in other areas, but that's a separate issue. But look, what I'm interested in, Paulina, is because I like your thinking about it. I like your thinking about it, right? You said, look, in order for people to make rational decisions about how AI is going to be incorporated into their life, right? And so I'm going to go premise by premise, right? So forgive me for being sort of like from a philosophy perspective or premise or legal premise. So the first premise is that we need people to make decisions, their own decision about how they're going to incorporate AI. It's not up to me to tell people in Kentucky how to use AI, or people in the UK or in Ukraine, whatever it is. Every country will decide what's best for them, right? Well, every community will decide what's best for them. So there, in order to do that, you need digital literacy, right? In order for people to make meaningful decisions about how AI is incorporated in their life. They know about their values, but they need digital literacy to understand the tools that are emerging, to understand the possibilities, the potentials, the risks, all of that stuff. So you need digital literacy. So that's premise number two. Premise number three is, well, to have digital literacy, we know that the world is unequal. You need access. Which is exactly what you said. We need access to digital literacy, right? That digital literacy is gonna take what does access mean, right? What does access mean?
Which
Well,
one?
access
And which one is going to
and
ensure
people will say, well, you already have access to powerful algorithms. They're available for not a whole lot of money. Yeah, but you don't have access to data. You don't have access to specialized algorithms. You don't have access to technical expertise, right? You don't have access to a whole lot of other things, like even as basic as having internet connection, right? So we need to understand what that access are. Great. So now we are on the third premise. We give them access. Okay, so what do you do also beyond access? Well, once you have access, digital literacy, right? You say, do we need, because this is the important question, what does that, when we talk about digital literacy, in order to give them access to exactly, again, we need to be thinking about what? Do we need access? Like, for example, ChatGPT tells you, you don't need to know how we're doing things. Just use our product. Fine. Right? We're giving you access. We're democratizing it, the whole thing. You don't need to. And maybe, at the super specialist, maybe the rest of the world doesn't need to, or maybe most of us do not need to know the super how a super specialist in physics is using algorithm, or in medicine is using algorithm to treat a particular kind of cancer, right? Maybe we don't need that kind of a knowledge, but there are layers of knowledge, right? So the entire notion of what digital literacy is and how you have access to it is a big issue for me. Is a big issue. And so what you're doing right now is combining a few things. You're combining citizen participation, right, in this new format, in this AI. You're combining citizen participation, by the way, at different, and that could, by the way, also mean a whole set of different things,
Yeah.
right? Okay, participation in what? And in drafting international agreements, and sitting at the table and developing the technology. But let's say citizen participation. We need digital literacy. In order to have digital literacy, we need digital access, and we need resources, right? It's not gonna happen. By the way, we're back to the GDC in some ways, right? The Global Digital Compact, we're back to the GDC. And those are the building components. And what I'm interested in, because we are a little bit overwhelmed with some of the stuff, I'd love to work with you on kind of articulating a framework, right, on AI and digital literacy. What does it mean, right? What does AI and digital literacy mean? And by the way, UNESCO, I don't know if you saw the UNESCO report that was issued a few months ago on AI and education. And maybe we can take that and use that as a way, even if we look at, maybe this is another way of looking at it, Paulina, is let's look at the UNESCO report on AI and education, and let's do a summary of it, right? Let's do a summary on key issues. Say, look, it hits these points correctly. Here are some points where we think it needs to be added a little bit more. And maybe we can collaborate on it. It can be a paper, it can be something that we can post, and we build on that, right? We'll see how we work and how that makes sense. Again, it's I'm approaching it much more as a researcher, right? You have your research interest, we have our research interest, but it's a potential fruitful area of collaboration, particularly as we are negotiating as the world we're making just consultation. It's the member states that are negotiating the GDC and the summit of the future. Does that make sense at all?
I would say truly, yeah. Truly, yeah, Matt. I would say like as you just like remember about the AI glossary. So here like I have already elaborated pertaining to the subject what AI is, what digital literacy is, and this constitution is available on my website. So there are particular already definitions given pertaining to the like altering them. Truly, we may do it because like every point, like every day AI is evolving. We see that it has more and more points of growth. It is expanding. So like we may expand the definitions. We may like talk about this kind of points of interconnection and how to intertwine it. That's an interesting one pertaining to research papers and publishing it. I'm actually, as well as a public speaker, also interested in maybe giving some online lectures to students in the short term pertaining to, for example, your organization and enhancing this digital literacy, and exactly given particular examples, seeing this kind of new examples, how they are interpreted by people of a different kind of like age categories and different specializations. Because when it comes to speaking with IT specialists and lawyers, it's one thing how we say it. When it comes to speaking also with people of creative profession, it's a different subject, and for them they also like take, unfortunately, the idea of how creative AI is these days not as their personal insult, but they take it skeptically, but they understand that they cannot do anything, and right now they don't see, unfortunately, the necessary level of protection. So I guess I'm just like curious also how you see the idea of lecturing together, because I have seen that your organization gave some lectures on YouTube. They are available.
So we're working with students, and maybe we can engage, try to figure it out, right? So the way we work with students is we work with their professors, right, at the universities, and they usually have like a syllabus and everything else, and so we engage with them, right? So, and we're happy to do so. I think it would be a great idea. I think let's pursue it, right? Let's pursue it. I'm gonna unfortunately jump off because I'm already
Oh
like a
yes,
few
it
minutes
is.
to my next thing. But so let's think about both ideas in terms of the lectures, right? And I'll check out what you have on the website on your digital literacy. I will get to it sometime over the weekend, right? So
Okay.
maybe we can connect sometime next week and just have a quick follow up.
Yeah, absolutely. So then let's be in tune and wish you to have wonderful communications. I and thank you. So I guess it was
Thank you.
enlightening from both sides likewise.
Thank you. I really appreciate you reaching out, Paulina. I think it's look, there may be we are traveler along the same path. Let's see if there are ways where we can leverage our resources and our expertise together to have hopefully a bigger impact.
Yeah, and I guess it would be a fruitful practice for us and for humanity as well. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Thank you. So then bye.
Bye.
Stay tuned.